Our next poet is Elizabeth Herron. Elizabeth is the current Poet Laureate of Sonoma County and is Professor Emerita of Arts and Humanities at Sonoma State University. As well as poems, she writes essays about art and empathy in well-being. Elizabeth is the author of Insistent Grace from Fernwood Press and 4 chapbooks, with a 5th, Her Body, forthcoming from Main Street Rag. In Elizabeth's newest book, entitled In the Cities of Sleep, which is coming out on Valentine's Day, she considers the global ramifications of a warming planet. Elizabeth's work has been supported by the Mesa Retreat for Writers, the NEA Artists in Community, the Foundation for Deep Ecology, the International League of Conservation Writers and Poets and Writers. She is a 4-time Pushcart Prize nominee. You can learn more at elizabethherron.net. Please welcome Elizabeth Herron.
Thank you. I have to say, Monica, after your reading, I just wanted to I felt I was kind of in a dream state, really like there was a trance state that you created that was so beautiful, so delicate, and at the same time, so strong. I was a little bit speechless, how to say thank you. And more than that, it was just I could feel your heart, such a strong, sensitive heart right there in your work. And it's a gift. It really made me think about what poetry is for, So thank you. And of course, it made me think about poems that I could read kind of in response. But I want to say a couple things that, your use of repetition is just such a wonderful reminder of how repetition functions. And take us all the way back to the origin of poetry in the chants and songs of the earliest people. When I say love, when I say life, that way that you repeated the when I say and got deeper and deeper each time. That was just so powerful. And also, I really liked what you said about the freedom that comes with restraint, freedom that comes through constraint. You said the freedom that comes through constraint. I love that idea. That's one of the reasons to use form, which I don't do very much. And so I greatly admire it. And I also do love the pantoum. It just takes patience, and I'm always roaring around. But anyway, since you talked about autumn and the beauty of autumn, I thought I might read from my book that came out 2 years ago, from Insistent Grace. I would just read The Fires of Autumn, if I could find it quickly. Because I didn't have here it is, Fires of October. And it begins with a quote from Rachel Carson. And she said, a living cell like a flame burns fuel. All these little fires spark the energy of life. I can imagine how each breath takes in the light and swirls it through the billions of cells in my body. How each cell ignites with oxygen in the chemical joy of essential existence. How it rises in the wings of cinnamon teals lifting off the marsh to begin their migration. How deep in the icy waters of Arctic lakes char glimmer with the combustion of spawning. But what is it I must do as the daylight narrows? Tell me, I whisper to the deepening dark how to cradle that spark, to keep the fires of the mind steadily burning, to open their fan of flame, the way the maple spreads its crimson leaves across October. What ancient ritual song am I meant to sing? Tell me how to be the open hearth, the hollow waiting to hold the mystery of this blaze, to be this radiance, even to be ashes. I have a poem about a persimmon tree, and wonderful artist in this area did a painting to pair with it for an exhibit, but I thought about that. But let's go instead to Deer on Bodega Highway, another pairing for you. Or Fawn on Bodega Highway. Her head lolls when I lift her. Legs a spindly sway below the royal of translucent intestine. No odor of death, only the scent of her mother's milk. Take her to the dandelions and vetch, the foxglove with their spotted throats, under the thirst blossoms of buckeye. The doe browses alone now, crosses the meadow in the morning, uneasy sense of nothing behind her. The hollow open, where light had gathered into form and slid, bloody in a sack of pearl, to the grass beside her. Still astonished, she turns, listening, hesitates, suspended in the throb of her flanks, the curdle of her grassy milk. I want to read, I can't help wanting to read some of my poems from the Ukraine. These are difficult, you know. So the first is Prayer for the Ukraine. The ants have found the honey. Isn't that their way? And so there they are, afloat in the work of 1,000 bees. The fragile footing of my morning, my breath, my bread and honey, gives way to the rubble of a bombed apartment, the doorway of a collapsing hospital, as bodies lie in fields of snow or tumbled into a long ditch. Physicists tell us the world is no more than a collision of waves, a brief kiss that births a moment like this, life or that, a child, a bee, an ant, one who gives an order and one who falls. A brief kiss, one ant seeking another, the common rubbing of legs in a hive, the whispers of children holding hands in the dark. And prayer is a resting place, a boat on a sea of blood with oars that slide away from my hands. Odessa, 2022. This one will be in the collection of poems come out from Main Street Bag, Her Body, which is voices of women from all over different places and different times. So Odessa, 2022. I heard there was chanting in Moscow at Luzhniki Stadium. Zaputina, Zaputina. He made this terrible war. From the edge of the beach, we watch The rockets explode outside the city. We walk past the shipyard where the hulks of vessels in dry dock, leashed to their berths and straining seaward as if they might escape the warships. Farther on, in the sand, we find the ghosts of six-cylinder engines in the plastic six-pack rings washed up from far at sea, and bottle caps. You press them down to see the mark they make. How blue the ruffled ring, blue as the moons of Jupiter on the inside of my arm, like old needle tracks, like teeth marks you sometimes nip into my neck. I never wanted you to lick my skin as if I were the shore. Just bruise my lip with your ajika. Take my name and shape it to a whisper, Guyane. Nick it into my shoulder when you shudder against me. If they take the city, we can hide in the old ship's hulls, drain the rusty fuel and bottle it, tear our shirts for the wicks, light, toss, and run. They'll never catch us. Say my name again, Cayenne. Press it into me like that bottle cap, grinding your teeth on the sand. Trying to own our own violence, I think, is a chunk of my work. And so this is called While Bombs Fell, and it has a footnote. The Russian general Sergei Surovikin, who ordered both the bombing of Aleppo, Syria, and the bombing of Grozny, Chechnya, is currently in charge of the assault on the Ukraine. He actually has just been replaced, but this is called While Bombs Fell. For weeks, while bombs fell in Aleppo and rockets exploded the dark and birds flew blind from the trees, you dreamed of books, the entire library of human history afloat on the ocean. The birds thrown upward in the flare, balanced on the explosion's apex of air till their wings flew away from their bodies as the pages floated away from their bindings, soaked in salt. Words without context. Here, Hannibal's army riding elephants over the Alps. There, Hildegard von Bingen's musical notations. 1,000 Americans died of drug overdose in those 2 weeks while the bombs fell, dropped over Syria, and the birds plummeted soundlessly with only an explosion of feathers. Their wings sailed on the turbulence, then fluttered down to rubble and dust. The hands fell from the needles like the wings off a bird. The pages sailed away balanced on the current and salt of the tide before they sank. How cunning, you said when you woke, the way things come apart, the way they change from something to nothing. And I think I'll end with one of the early poems in the new book, In the Cities of Sleep, which is in the process of production right now and will reach me, and copies will reach me for Valentine's Day. And I think it's up for pre-order day after tomorrow online, or from Fernwood's online ordering. So this is the book that's primarily centered on the ramifications of climate change, but it begins gently in a section called Before, and the second poem there is Swan Bone. So I'll close with this. The bones of birds being hollow for obvious reasons, it might be obvious also why the first flutes found thousands of years after the pentatonic melodies they played in the lives of Homo sapien Neanderthalensis and Homo sapien sapiens, perhaps while dancing, perhaps while there was chanting around them, perhaps while the dancers moved in circles, perhaps while someone else shook a rattle and someone struck a drum, and a boy in the circle of dancers looked up to a cloud of swans traversing the autumn, their hollow wing bones lifting and falling above a swirl of yellow leaves that smoked the sky with gold. Thank you all very much for keeping me company. Thank you, Sandy.